Hello again, my name is Ryan Crowley from the University of Kentucky. In the previous element, we talked about what it means to adopt a critical stance in social studies. We continue that discussion here by sharing some guidelines for crafting inquiries that align with the ideas of critical theory. As you have seen elsewhere in this module, we will discuss how to create inquiries using the inquiry design model, and we see the development of critical inquiries as a way to use the new Kentucky Academic Standards for Social Studies to promote equity in your classroom. When you boil down the IDM framework, you see its three main components: questions, sources, and tasks. When we set out to craft a critical inquiry, we must attend to all three of these elements. In the coming slides, I will discuss some considerations for how to write critical questions, expose students to critical sources, and create critical tasks. First, questions. For critical inquiry, compelling and supporting questions should explicitly critique systems of oppression and power. These questions should not just be about exploring a topic connected to oppression in a limited fashion. For example, an inquiry related to apartheid in South Africa should not only talk about how the system worked or how the system ended. Instead, it should explore the motivations behind apartheid and who benefited from the system. To pull a few examples from the inquiries available on c3teachers.org, the compelling questions shown here related to Emmett Till, women's suffrage, and economic inequality all ask students to consider past or contemporary inequities in an expansive, justice-oriented fashion. The first inquiry, for example, does not just explore what happened to Emmett Till, but takes up the question of whether or not justice could be done for his murder. When we think about the nature of critical sources, the most important guideline is that the sources chosen for the inquiry include the perspectives of the marginalized or oppressed groups under investigation. So an inquiry focused on the civil rights movement would not limit itself to speeches of political leaders or ask students to read parts of legislation passed or court rulings handed down during that time period. Critical sources would include the voices of those on the ground who organized and agitated so that those legislative and judicial battles could be won. In crafting tasks for a critical inquiry, it is important that your summative tasks or taking informed action activity push students to take tangible steps toward alleviating the injustice identified in the inquiry. And this guideline relates back to the activist element crucial to adopting a critical stance in your teaching. So to put these guidelines into practice, let's take a closer look at an inquiry currently available at c3teachers.org. It was written by Kentucky teacher Kenny Stansel. Kenny's inquiry focuses on economic inequality, asking the compelling question, can we afford the super rich? The entire inquiry is available for download on this page. We will talk about this inquiry in light of the three components of the IDM framework. So first, questions. Kenny's compelling question explicitly asks students to critique the fairness of an economic system that allows for accumulation of wealth in the hands of a small group of individuals. And the two supporting questions shown here focus in on the consequences of inequality to mental and physical health, as well as the damage it does to our democratic institutions. Although Kenny's inquiry includes a number of sources, I pulled out three critical sources to share here. All of these do a nice job of helping us to understand the experiences of those on the losing end of an economic system that has produced vast inequality. Finally, tasks. Kenny's inquiry is designed so that students build their understanding of the effects of economic inequality through a number of formative assessment tasks. Then, the summative tasks encourage students to develop an argumentative essay and then convert it into an op-ed that could be shared with a wider audience. And for students that prefer to take an even stronger activist stance, the Taking Informed Action task calls for a town hall style event in which students could share what they learned with school and community members. So, what does it mean to make inquiry critical? Remember that critical inquiries aim for critical questions, critical sources, and critical tasks. Putting these together allows your students to understand past or contemporary inequities and to consider how to alleviate those injustices. After this element, you'll be moving on to the Prove It for Module 2. But first, please take a few moments to complete the 3 Practice It questions below.